Welcome into the Nike Hot Seat. I'm Emily Eamon, joined by Hannah Tapp, middle blocker for Team USA, and businesswoman, which we'll get into all of that. But Hannah, I want to start off going back in your earliest memory of sports. What would you say is your earliest memory being introduced to sports?
I have an identical twin sister, and so we would just play a ton of sports growing up, mostly basketball to start, and then we just got into team sports with this group of girls that I grew up with at Stortville High School. And so we did traveling basketball, and then we went to volleyball, and then we went to track. And so I was a multi-sport athlete, just enjoyed just being, you know, playing with my friends, being in like a team community, things like that. And so my earliest memory is just playing with my sister in the backyard, doing pepper. We had a little basketball court, so shooting hoops, playing one-on-one, things like that.
Who normally won the one-on-ones?
So actually, we played one-on-one. We had a little half court in our backyard. And because my brother was a big basketball player, my dad was a basketball player. And so we would play one-on-one every single night. And we've never finished a game. And we'd be playing like 5 points, but we never finished a game just because we're so competitive. It was like, that was a foul, that was an and one. Nope, that was not a three, like that was not a 2-point shot, things like that. And so we were just so competitive, we could never finish a game. So we've never actually played one-on-one and finished a 5-point game. Can you imagine how frustrated my parents were?
They're sitting there watching, like, guys, just finish one game.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like, it would get to 4 points, someone was gonna win, and then it would just be like, sorry, like that was illegal and just ridiculous stuff. Bad sportsmanship, I'm sure, but you know what? It is what it is.
Well, you mentioned your twin sister Paige and how
Yeah.
competitive you guys were growing up. I'm wondering, what's the biggest similarity growing up between you two, and what was the biggest difference?
So we actually tried to act different. Like we would walk into a store when we're shopping together and be like, "Oh, I like this," and she'd grab something I liked more, and I'm like, "It's okay," you know what I mean? And so like we were super similar, but we didn't want to admit it. And so as we've grown up and we live together and we're roommates throughout college, but then once we went our separate ways after college, I've realized really just how similar we are, especially when we're on our own individual paths. And so it was the same with sports, like our interests in sports and our interests outside of sports are very, very similar.
In high school, you mentioned, you played so many different sports. I know you were also good basketball players, but switched strictly to volleyball later in high school. Why did you make that switch?
So we loved basketball and we still like our heart is still in basketball. Well, not as much as it is volleyball, but we really did love basketball and we loved the group that we grew up with playing traveling basketball. But we got in a little bit of a hard situation where our varsity basketball coach said there will be no extracurriculars, which was tough because we had just signed with the University of Minnesota and we said, okay, we're gonna go play club volleyball because it's common for volleyball players to play club volleyball when maybe they're 13, 14, 15 especially, but Paige and we just didn't have a club near us and I guess the resources from a really young age to play club volleyball. And so we decided our 17s year we're going to try out for a really good club in Minnesota, and we tried out and we made the ones team and we're super excited. And then our varsity coach caught wind and he didn't want us, sprinting out of practice, driving up to the cities, a 2-hour drive, and then practicing until 9 p.m. For a good reason, I understand. But just where we saw our future and where we wanted to take our, our volleyball career, we thought we needed to play club. And so he kind of made the decision for us and we said, okay, we've already made this commitment, we're no longer going to play basketball, which was tough, but it ended up working out.
So you signed on to Minnesota before you had even played a club season of volleyball.
Correct. We did a team camp for like our high school, and we did a team camp at the U of M, and I remember me and Paige got kind of pulled aside by Elfie Reft. He's now coaching at UCLA, but he was an assistant coach at the time. And he pulled us aside and had one of their setters, Mia Taberson, set us slides, and I was like, "Oh my goodness, what's going on? Why are we being singled out?" And I thought it was the coolest thing ever, and then they asked us to go on a visit, and we went on a visit, and at the time, we're from a small school, and we had gotten offers from some D2 schools and obviously interest from D3 schools in the area, but before we played club, we had no exposure.
So being from Minnesota and going on to play at U of M, what went into that decision for both of you to go there together?
Yeah, we said we're gonna make our decision where we want to go. We weren't set on going together. We were like, okay, you're gonna pick the school that's for you. I'm gonna pick the school that's for us. It was very clear though that Minnesota was where we wanted to go.
Mm.
And even when it was time to go on official visits and you could travel the country to go to these different schools, we were like, we're positive that this is the school for us. Let's sign.
Well, it's that similarity piece again. You try to be different and
Exactly.
say, hey, we're going to go our individual ways. But at the end of the day, you guys are just so, so similar. How would you describe playing with Paige for so many years of your career?
It was really fun. I look back on it and it was just to be able to play with her again would be a dream. It was just crazy that we got to play with each other and how thankful I am that we actually got to be on the court at the same time. I think we were a little bit nervous that we were both middles going to a D1 school from a small school, and the likelihood of us both seeing the court at the time we thought were pretty slim. So I'm really thankful that we both got to see the court and to play together. Just really awesome. And I'm really grateful for that.
Well, when you went pro after finishing college, you both kind of went your separate ways. You went on to play in Germany. Paige went on to play in Puerto Rico. Was it the first time that you guys were really apart from each other?
Yes. Yeah. It
How was
was
that
bizarre.
dynamic?
Well, I just realized you always have this companion. So growing up, we shared a bedroom. In college, she was right next door to me. Like our bedrooms were side by side, and then you're off in a foreign country, which has all of its own caveats. There's a foreign language. You can speak to your teammates, but it's not the same. You don't have your sister there. So it was like a big shock. And I think in high school and in college, we kind of bickered a lot, just being around each other. And I think being apart, we were like, wow, we shouldn't be so critical of each other. We should just be a little bit more loving and admit that we're each other's best friends. Before then, we would be like, I'll never admit that. But now we're just like, well, duh.
Yeah. I know you've been playing professionally in Japan for the last few years. What's your favorite part about playing there?
Japan is great. So I love the food. I love the professional culture. Being on a pro team is a lot different than college. It can get glorified in the way it's our fault as professional athletes. We portray it when we go overseas, but you don't have the resources typically that you do in college, like the athletic trainer facility, the trainers, the expertise they have, team doctors, all the resources that you have in college, you rarely find on a professional team overseas. But in Japan, they're pretty similar, and I've really liked that. The way they take care of me, the way they ask me, "How are you feeling? Looking at this week of practice, do you think we overdid it last week?" They really take into account your body, how you're feeling, your mental health, whereas kind of when you're in, I would say, Europe, you're a little bit thrown into the trenches and you just kind of have to, okay, figure it out on your own, which has a lot of fun parts too. But I love how professional it is in Japan, and they pay on time. They do a lot of things really well, and they try to make it similar to the college, really professional behavior.
And I think that's something that's so important because, for the first time when a lot of people go overseas, it can be so overwhelming. The adjustment part, you mentioned the language barrier, so many things. Becoming a professional athlete that can be difficult, especially coming from, say, a really good college program where all that stuff is kind of just there and, systematically for you. So that's a huge adjustment going to play somewhere like that where you don't have to worry about, half as much as you would maybe playing somewhere else.
Absolutely.
So I know You came back a few months ago. You had a season-ending knee injury. Where are you at in the rehab process? And, mentally, how has that been for you? Because sometimes that can be, just as difficult as that physical part of rehab.
Yeah, and so I completely ruptured my patella tendon, as I was telling you earlier, and I've had a patella tendon tear 5 years prior, and so as soon as I got injured, I was like, "Okay, this is gonna be a long road ahead. I need to be patient, um, and I need to just take it one step at a time." I kn My first injury, I didn't know what to expect, and so I was just like, okay, eager to do the next thing, and then I was like, "Wow, this is taking forever." But with this injury, I knew what to expect, and so I was like, "Okay, it's going to be a little overwhelming to begin with, I have to be patient with myself," which I think did help, just knowing what to expect a little bit, and I'm about, I wanna say 3 months post-surgery, and so I'm working on being able to bend my knee more. I can walk normally, which is huge. I'm doing PT regularly, which is, you're so used to just, when you're a professional athlete, you work out all the time, and you're so used to just having, being strong, being fit, and then once you have to lose all that, you kind of get lost, and you just have to remember, it's just part of the process. It's hard, it's not easy, but it's a part of being a high level athlete. You're gonna get injured at times, and it's just something you have to deal with and accept.
Yeah, I think that's a great mindset going into it because, of course, nobody wants to get injured. No one's expecting to get injured. But having that mindset of, okay, this is where I'm at. I just got to do everything, take it day by day. And when I get there, I'll get there. But I want to switch gears a little bit, Hannah. You also somehow have time to be a businesswoman along with being a professional athlete. You're the founder of Operate June, a sustainable clothing company. I know you launched bucket hats back a few years ago and have been making more and more items ever since. What's the story behind you starting Operate June?
Yeah, so I started it in 2020. I was going on a lot of walks. It was right when COVID hit. I wanted to stay active. Gyms were closed. We couldn't go to the USA gym. And I was going on a lot of walks, and I was finding that sunscreen was clogging my pores. And I know it's so important. And so I was like, okay, how do I protect my face from the sun but still go on these walks? And I was like, okay, a bucket hat is a really good option. Unfortunately, though, the bucket hats, all of the ones that I could find, they left, like, my lips
Yeah.
and my chin exposed, and I was getting freckles on my lips, and I was like, "Okay, if they don't have one that I need, I'm gonna make it," and so I made a bucket hat with, it's just a little bit longer of a brim so that when you wear it, it covers your face completely, and then you can kind of lift it up if you want some sun on your face. And so I started there, and also when you're overseas, in college, you've got school, you've got, your workouts, you've got practice, you travel to tournaments, you've got all your friends to hang out with constantly. When you're overseas, it's a lot more isolating. And so I found myself being like, okay, so I don't have school. Um, so what am I gonna do? I gotta find some hobbies. And so I've really just been, trying to be more creative, like trying to think of what are my favorite things, how can I tweak it and make it a little better, and then how can I, offer it as a product in my company. And so it's been just really exciting and really fun for me. And also, when I was in college, I studied abroad in Bali, and they do some really cool sustainable business practices. So I found a manufacturer that entirely solar powered, doesn't use water waste, doesn't ship with single use plastic, all it uses decomposable packaging, just really cool stuff that I believe in, that I was like, okay, I'm a small company. I might as well use that from the beginning. Whereas if I do grow, okay, great. I'm not harming the planet. If anything, I'm, investing into good business practices. And so that was also really rewarding.
You've mentioned that big emphasis on sustainability, whether it's from materials to packaging. Why is it important to you to have that sustainable operation?
I think, you know, I'll be honest, I'm a culprit. I'll use the single use straw sometimes, but I think if I'm thinking more long term, I wanted something that I believe in and I want it to be helping out, not hurting. So, okay, if I make this company and it doesn't amount to very much, I wasn't hurting the world. If anything, I was promoting solid business practices and I was getting annoyed. I have a kind of this online shopping addiction. I think everyone, when you're overseas, you're
We
just
all
like,
do.
oh, I want that. I want that. You get home and you've got these stacks of packages. And then I'd be like, oh my goodness, look at all this plastic that's just used to package these goods. Like, what if they were using, just something a little more sustainable? Think about the impact that would have over time. So, of course, if I'm, even if I'm selling a bucket hat, even if someone purchasing the bucket hat doesn't care, at least it's not causing waste.
Mhm. So how much of the day to day are you in charge of with Opera June?
So I like to wake up, have some coffee, pack some orders. So it's seasonal business. So I just relaunched the shop probably a month ago because obviously I was only home in California during the summer for the national team. And then when I was overseas, I couldn't ship anything. And so I'm working on a new collection. So I'll just, I'll go on, I'll be a little bit creative, I'll pack some orders, um, reach out to people, respond to emails. Only probably like a couple hours a day, I'd say. Depends on how many orders we get, I guess. But it's something I really enjoy and it's really rewarding.
In terms of designs and just, thinking about different, clothing items or a swimsuit, hat, whatever it is that you want to put out, are you sketching these on paper? Do you hire someone out? Like, what's the creative process like?
Yeah, so I have a pattern designer that I work with at my manufacturer. And so what I will do is I'll sketch a little design and then I'll get on a Zoom call with them. I'll emphasize the important points. So this is what I really want. And then I'll have usually a couple swimsuits that I really like. And I'll say, I like this because they do, this specifically. I like this fabric. I like the shape of this. And then I will send them the ones that I like. And so they can see actually physically, because sometimes working on Zoom, it's hard, just to actually, especially when you're working with materials, feel things like that. And so I'll send them some things that I like. I'll show them some drawings. We get to talk face to face.
That's definitely huge. In terms of, say you are playing professional overseas and managing this business, how do you handle that balance?
Um, it's actually really nice. So when I didn't have Opera June, I would get home from practice and I would just constantly analyze what I did wrong during practice a lot of times, how I can get better, which that's a really good thing to do as a professional athlete. But when it's your entire life and all you do, it can consume you and it can cause some anxiety and like all your thing you can't leave the gym because you're just like, I have to get better. Every single thing I have to do has to get better. Whereas I found that my game actually improved when I could step away. When I had something else to pour into, then when I would step back on the court the next day, even if the day before wasn't so great, I would be eager to play, eager to, help my teammates out. I wouldn't be just in my head 24 hours a day. And so I found that staying busy, I think in college when we have school to distract us, it helps us do that just by having a school workload. But I found that by running my business, having some Zoom meetings scheduled, it helped me step away and then kind of reboot and get ready for the next day or next session.
Lastly, for someone that was maybe in your shoes, say 3 years ago, when you were thinking about starting this business while being overseas, what advice would you have for them to just get started in something that they're passionate about, whether it's a hobby or something like starting a business?
Just do it. If you're gonna wait because you want it to be perfect, like a perfect product offering, or you want the perfect thing to say, if you want to become maybe like an influencer or make videos teaching someone how to do things. Don't wait for the perfect pitch, the perfect product, the perfect message. Just do it imperfectly, and you're going to learn along the way, and you're also going to help people. And so I think a lot of people are scared to take that first step because maybe what they have isn't, the best thing right now, but it can improve. Maybe your website isn't great. It will improve, just take those first steps, and it's going to be fun.
Well, just do it, Hannah. We love it.
Just do it.
Thank you so, so much for joining me. It's been awesome to get to know you more and to hear about, your mind behind the scenes in terms of starting that business, how it was growing up. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit more. And good luck with all the rehab. I know we're all rooting for you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's so great talking to you.
Thank you.